The word strategic Bitcoin reserve to the casual observer sound like a stockpile of an asset. To a closer observer, it sounds like a stockpile of the most valuable asset the human race has ever invented. But I'm here today to show you how the strategic Bitcoin reserve represents a strategy for United States digital supremacy in the 21st century.
Michael Saylor articulates a compelling vision where Bitcoin is not merely a cryptocurrency, but a strategic asset that can propel the United States to digital supremacy in the 21st century. His address, delivered at the Bitcoin for America event, aims to educate senators, members of Congress, policy workers, media, and Bitcoin industry leaders about the critical role Bitcoin can play in the nation's future prosperity. Saylor begins by framing Bitcoin as digital capital, an apex asset with the potential to generate immense value for the United States. He estimates its worth to range from $3 trillion to $106 trillion over the next 20 years. This valuation is based on the idea that corporations are increasingly recapitalizing on Bitcoin, as evidenced by companies like MicroStrategy, Saylor's company, which has seen its assets grow from $250 million to nearly $45 billion in just 48 months. For investors, this suggests that allocating capital to Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related ventures could yield substantial returns in the long run. Saylor points out that corporations accumulating Bitcoin on their balance sheets are poised to amass $20 to $40 trillion in assets over the next 2 decades. Before we delve into the video, if you want the latest crypto news, market updates, and expert insights from the top minds in the industry, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never miss an opportunity in this ever-changing world of the financial markets. Thank you for subscribing to our channel.
The president, with his vision, has established a strategic Bitcoin reserve as of last week and has declared that America will be the Bitcoin superpower. That is prescient. I would hazard to guess that the great majority of the people that saw that post don't even know what Bitcoin superpower means, and they haven't really considered it. I was inspired by the words, and that caused me to put together this presentation today. Why is Bitcoin critical to the prosperity of the United States in the 21st century? That is the question we all should be asking. There are many metaphors for thinking about a strategic reserve of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is digital capital. If we thought of it as Bitcoin as digital capital, is this a stockpile of cheese? Is this a stockpile of oil, natural gas, or even uranium, all of which would be interesting? Well, at its worst case, in its narrowest form, you could think about the strategic Bitcoin reserve as a stockpile of the apex asset of the human race. And so what's it worth? Well, over the next 20 years, I think it's worth anywhere from $3 trillion to $106 trillion to the United States. U.S. corporations, like my corporation, are actually recapitalizing on Bitcoin. We've gone from having $250 million of assets 48 months ago to having nearly $45 billion of assets in 48 months. If you look out over the next 20 years, corporations that are accumulating Bitcoin on their reserve, like MSTR, like Mara, like Riot, they're going to have $20 to $40 trillion. So this is a small metaphor, but it's a powerful metaphor. But, you know, it's hard to rent out or finance or develop your cheese or your gold or your natural gas buried in a vault. So a more powerful metaphor is Bitcoin is digital property. If you own 5% of Manhattan and your family had owned it for 100 years and someone said, how are you going to pay your bills? You wouldn't say, we're just going to sell it. You would say, we're going to rent it. We're going to develop it. We're going to put a building on top of it, a business on top of it, or we're going to finance it. We're going to borrow against it. The same is true with Bitcoin. In 20 years, the United States could be generating $10 trillion per year by renting, developing, or financing the assets in that strategic Bitcoin reserve. The AIs are coming. The AIs don't get bank accounts. They don't get credit cards. The AIs, the artificial intelligence economy, will be built on digital capital, digital property. It'll be a $100 trillion economy. It'll be built on Bitcoin. A lot of people, they think of it as an asset, you think of it as a property, but what we know to be true is that Bitcoin is actually a network, and it's not just any network. It's not an information network, it's an energy network. It's a conservative network. I can send $1 billion from me to you, I lose it, you have it. That is the conservation of energy in cyberspace. So when you start to visualize Bitcoin as a digital energy network, what you realize is that trillions of dollars of digital commerce will flow over that network. The banking system of the world is going to rebuild itself on a digital energy network. We're going to have 40,000 banks that'll be settling with each other in real time. Finally, moving billions, tens of billions, or hundreds of billions of dollars an hour over a pure digital network. Right, so if you look at the world and imagine digital energy moving around the world, and then you ask the question, would you want to own it or would you want to ignore it? It's an important question. And of course, you know, I think some of you might have seen the cyber blackout of X yesterday and all the cyber attacks. The last and most important metaphor is when we have open digital energy flowing, it is a commerce network. But when we reverse that digital energy into a shield, it becomes a defense system. Bitcoin's a digital defense system. Bitcoin messages, data authentications, transactions, they're unstoppable, uncorruptible, immutable, immune to tampering by any known cyber threat. You can protect the United States commercial and military and financial systems behind a wall of digital energy. And that's exactly how we will do it. You know, even Elon Musk pointed out, the AIs don't know how to hack Bitcoin. They can spoof you out of your money. They can convince you that there's someone they're not. There's no way to trick an 800 exahash digital wall that's based on modern encryption. The AIs won't get through that wall. What's driving the growth of Bitcoin? It is the most powerful force in the world right now. It's growing nearly 60%. It's become the eighth largest asset in the world. It's about to become the largest asset in the world in the next 48 months. It's all of the smart money in the world running from risk, running from the past toward the future, from something less secure to something more secure. And they're doing it in the most visible way with their capital. This is a map of the wealth distribution in the world, about $900 trillion. If you break it into uses, half of it is just a store of value. We're long-term, we're preserving our capital for the long term. We just want to keep our money. The other half are assets held for utility. I want to do something with the asset. If you drill into the 450 trillion, you realize the problem is that long-term capital is being dissipated and decimated by fires, by floods, by famines, by tariffs, by wars, by competition, by rust, by obsolescence, by torts, by traffic, you name it, right? What's that cost? That costs 10 trillion a year. There's people go, well, what is Bitcoin's use case? The use case is to not suffer $10 trillion a year of damage from entropy, from inflation, from chaos, from the future. Bitcoin's an asset without the financial risk of a currency, a bond, a stock, and it doesn't have the physical risk of real estate and property. And we're stripping away the counterparty risk to everything. And so we're moving away from risk, and what that means is that as the word spreads that there's an opportunity to keep your money without taking risk, long-term capital is being merged into the Bitcoin network. The greatest digital transformation of the 21st century, it isn't the transformation of music, it isn't the transformation of your photos, your communications, your Facebook friends, or educational videos, although each of those things made $1 trillion company. The greatest digital transformation is the transformation of capital.
Saylor concludes by asserting that the United States must become a Bitcoin superpower to protect its sovereignty. He draws parallels with the need to control airspace, sea lanes, and cyberspace, arguing that control over digital energy and digital commerce is essential for maintaining national power in the 21st century. To own cyberspace, the US needs to own Bitcoin and control the Bitcoin network. This requires fostering a domestic Bitcoin mining industry and ensuring that more than 50% of the network's hash rate is controlled by the US and its allies.